Kilifi, where I have a little house on the beach. They'll sometimes see me in the town and greet me very warmly. So it can't all have been bad.
But good or bad, by the middle of the 20th century there was a new force abroad. The world had turned against the very idea of imperialism. Nowhere would the struggle for freedom be more bitter than in Kenya. It sparked a conflict that would shatter the empire's claims to moral authority. White settlers in Kenya had done well for themselves farming the fertile highlands. They developed the country. They felt they had a claim to it. Many native Kenyans, especially those Kikuyu who'd been displaced, felt otherwise. The issue was land. As one Kikuyu explained to a visiting British politician, when someone steals your ox, it's killed and roasted and eaten, you can forget. But when someone steals your land, you can never forget. It's always there. It's lakes, it's streams. It's a bitter presence. The division of the spoils in Kenya was not exactly equal. A mere 3,000 white farmers occupied 12,000 square miles of prime land. By contrast, over 1 million Kikuyu lived on just 2,000 square miles. But the settlers were tough characters, and they were in no mood to compromise.
Are you afraid of what might happen to the settlers' position if the Africans move more towards self-government?
No, I don't think so. We've always stood on our feet before. I think we can do it again.
Do you think your property is likely to go? Do you think you'll be in a difficult position?
Not without being fought for.
Would you fight?
Definitely.
If
I've done it all my life.
Soon came rumours of a secret Kikuyu resistance movement called Mau Mau. Their goal was freedom from British rule, and they were prepared to use terror to achieve it. Mystery and fear were part of what the Mau Mau were about. Deep in the forests of the Aberdare Mountains, they conducted initiation ceremonies in which naked young people drank goat's blood and swore to drive out the white invader. In European circles, these became known as orgies, in which babies were torn from their mother's womb and eaten alive. One colonial official even claimed to detect the horned shadow of the devil himself.
This Mau Mau is a lawless and savage organisation.
Of course, the situation in Kenya is still full of danger.
The stage was set for a violent showdown. Native Kenyan troops working for the British were drafted in to confront their own people. Some settlers decided to get out while they could. But while the whites felt under threat, the people who really suffered were other Kikuyu, those who chose to stay loyal to the British. On the night of March the 26th, 1953, the area of Lari, here on the edge of the Great Rift Valley, was attacked by the Mau Mau. The people here were largely loyal to the colonial government. It was the middle of the night, so most of the villagers were asleep. The Mau Mau came to their huts, blocked the entrances, set fire to them, and then went to work with axes and machetes.
These pictures arrive from Kenya. They show the charred remains of the village of Lari, only 30 miles from Nairobi, where over 120 loyal Kikuyu were massacred by Mau Mau terrorists. Men, women, and children perished in a night of savagery almost beyond description. An entire village was turned into a smoldering funeral pyre.
Alice Wanjiri Kimani, or General Alice as she then was, led the Mau Mau raid on Lari. She's now aged 81 and still lives and farms near the village.
Hoodie.
Good morning, Tom.
You're Alice.
Hello.
Hello. Oh,
Nice to meet you.
God, that's a heck of a handshake.
Karibu.
Thank you.
Hĩndĩ ĩyo ũtukũ ũcio ũrĩa wekĩkire wokire tũkĩgaywo o andũ ikundi. Hĩndĩ ĩrĩa twarĩkĩrie gũtharĩka kuo twatonya ithuĩ twakĩhitanirwo na andũ kũhũrana nao.
Did you kill anybody?
Thĩinĩ wa mbara ĩyo nĩ ũkĩũĩ andũ ndingĩkora atĩ kana ndĩhe mũndũ mũndoragire no he mũndũ ndahutirie tondũ hatiakĩrĩ thayũ nĩ kũhũrana. Nĩ ndahũrire rithathi 12 ndĩcitonyereirie posti. Nĩ ndarathirwo haha ngĩrathwo haha kũgũrũ rithathi ĩkĩhĩtũkĩra ũguo ĩngĩ ĩkĩhĩtũkĩra haha ũguo ĩgĩthiĩ ĩno ĩkĩhĩtũkĩra haha ĩgĩthiĩ ũguo ĩkĩragũtonya ĩgĩtemwo.
Was there no other way to get your freedom other than killing?
Gũtirĩ njĩra ĩngĩ tũngĩagĩire tondũ tũtangĩahũranire na tuonanie twĩna bata na kwaga gwathwo hatirĩ ũndũ ũngĩ tũngĩekire na nĩkĩo gĩatũmire tũnyue muma.
What do you think about the British now?
Ũmũthĩ ũyũ njugaga tũrĩ a nyina ũmwe githĩ rĩu tũtirageithania nawe na wĩ mũthũngũ. Hĩndĩ ĩyo tũtingĩageithanirie tũtingĩagũranĩire na Home Guard na rĩu nĩ tũgũranĩire rĩu tũrĩ a nyina ũmwe.
What do you think about the time that the British were here in Kenya as the colonial government?
Tiga nĩ gũtũtunya mĩgũnda matũtunyire na gũtwatha na ũmakoroni nĩ gwakũrĩte kwĩ rĩu tondũ rĩu ithuĩ tũrahũrana na tũtiĩkĩra tũrahũranĩra.
Would the country have been better if they hadn't been here?
Ndũ hĩndĩ ĩyo tũtiathomaga ta niĩ ndirĩ mũthomu na thikũ ici ona kana kaigana ũguo gakairĩtu ge thukuru.
Talk about a mixed verdict. But imperialism's time had passed. The struggle for uhuru, freedom, grew more intense. The authorities rounded up Mau Mau suspects thousands at a time, herding them into vast internment camps.
Nearly 500 suspects were detained for questioning. Over 100 of them were identified by survivors as having taken part in the massacre.
Will you ask her, Inspector, why she pointed this man out?
He's the one who killed my mother.
Imprisonment, torture, massacres. Somehow this temperate paradise had become a sort of hell. The world looked on and wondered. Was this the empire that claimed to be doing good in the world? Britain was losing the stomach for empire and the ability to sustain it. Much to the disgust of many farmers in the White Highlands, Kenyan nationalist leaders were summoned to London for negotiations. Uhuru was finally within their grasp.
At the Uhuru Stadium, the Articles of Independence were handed by the Duke to the country's Prime Minister. Joyful citizens of the new state celebrate their independence in the most African of all ways by dancing till they're ready to drop.
As the 1960s dawned, one colony after another demanded and got independence. The sun had most definitely set on the empire. It had taken centuries to accumulate. It was gone in a couple of decades.
The empire brought blood and tears and dispossession to millions of people, but it also brought roads and railways and education.
There is no simple judgment to be made on 3 turbulent centuries of history. Once, the official line was that apart from the odd blip, the empire was a good thing. Not just for Britain, but for the world. But the British grew ashamed of the empire and tried to wipe it from the national memory. The empire was certainly cruel, unjust, and unjustifiable if you were a slave on a plantation in the 18th century. But it was benign and humane if you were rescued from a slave ship by the Royal Navy in the 19th century. For good or ill, much of the world is as it is today because of the empire. From the way it looks, to the sports people play, from the religion they practice, to the language they speak, it has changed the very genetic makeup of Britain. If only we can look at it clear-eyed, it can tell us a lot about who we are. It's a story that belongs to all of us.
We've been through pride, we've been through shame. Mostly nowadays we seem to be in denial. But if we really want to understand who we are, it's time we stop pretending the empire was nothing to do with us.
To order a free Open University poster exploring the legacy of Britain's empire, go to bbc.co.uk/empire or call 0845 366 8021.